Firewatch is a game where you run away from real life by taking a job alone deep in the wilderness, with only a crackling radio and a stranger's voice to keep you company. But what starts as a quiet, peaceful summer job slowly turns into something deeply unsettling, as strange signals appear and things stop adding up. Whatever is happening out here, I wasn't ready for it. And it all started the day I met Julia. After meeting drunk in a bar, I learned that she studied biology, and we quickly fell in love and started living together. We even got a dog called Bucket, and started planning on having kids. But our happiness didn't last forever. It was always a hobby of ours to go hiking through the mountains, and a hobby of hers to draw. Also, quick side note, but this game is freaking gorgeous. Just look at this. However, things started going downhill when she got diagnosed with early dementia. We still went hiking whenever we could, always bringing her drawing with us. But her situation quickly got worse, getting to the point of barely remembering us sometimes. We tried taking care of her ourselves, but it was taking a big toll on us, and her parents insisted on having her live with them. This was when we saw a job opportunity as a Firewatch, and took it in hopes of escaping from everything. But little did we know that this job would change our life forever. We picked up the radio at Lookout Station and met Lila, our superior and only company around this place. She started pretty strong, asking what we were running away from, although getting dumped wasn't the reason. Anyways, we went to sleep and started the first day at shop. Our morning routine consisted of writing our diary in front of our portrait with Julia, after which Delilah would tell us what to do for the day. And today, there were some fireworks being set off, so it was top priority to stop whoever was doing that. We took our backpack and went out. Our first stop was at supply box 306, where we used the super secret code 1234 to open it and grab the rope inside, cause we'll need it. We also copied this map's information to ours and found a note from Ron, who seemed to work here before us. With that done, I went west, to the place where fireworks were being fired, and used the rope to descend a steep slide. And although it snapped in half, and we hit the ground with quite a bit of strength, we were fine. So that's what matters. Further ahead I reported a pretty nice place, perfect for camping. And sure enough, there were a bunch of beer cans there, whiskey, and even a campfire that we had to put off to avoid burning the whole forest down. Whoever was doing this must be pretty drunk, and since they left their clothes to dry, including their bra and stuff...
There are, panties?
There are what?
I don't want to say that word again.
Why, 'cause you're 12?
Okay, I love the witty dialogue between these two. It was no surprise when I found them in the lake. They had a cool stereo that I picked up in hopes of having them stop with fireworks. And it actually worked, until they called my dick tiny, and I threw their stereo into the lake. I wasn't expecting something to happen, but turns out they didn't like that. Either way, problem solved, and I now only had to return to the lookout station. On the way I found a supply box with more notes and an old sweater inside, which, strangely enough, was of a school that didn't exist. Okay, kinda weird. On this other one there was a flashlight that was bound to be useful. And, sure enough, minutes later I used it to explore this old cave, which was closed and needed a key to open. So, maybe in future. Turns out I wasn't alone in this forest, but I couldn't find out who that was. So, I just returned to my little home, only to find it completely wrecked. Windows broken, shit stolen, and everything in a complete mess. It was probably the work of either the guy we just saw or the girls at lake. And Lila will call her friend in the morning and ask her who made entrance in forest to try and find out who did all of this. So, they too. After our morning coffee, I noticed that we have been having nightmares with Julie. And after grabbing our radio, found out that the storm from last night knocked out the phone lines, and it was now up to us to go and see what's up. So I headed north and caught Delilah talking to someone else about me. She clearly seemed to be hiding something, but I decided not to confront her just yet, and kept moving forwards. A bit later I found the communication lines and followed them to the very end, where I found the wire cut, and some evidence that proved that it was surely not the doing of the storm. So, I set out to find those girls from before, and scare the hell out of them. Also, this guy is pretty darn funny.
And scare the hell out of them.
Yeah, I'd make a spooky ghost costume, but they stole my sheets.
On the way, I found some empty supply boxes and a backpack from Brian Goodwin, which had some delicious loot inside, like a camera and a rope. I obviously tried it out, and also learned that Brian was a 12-year-old that was stationed at that same lockout as us with his father, Ned, 3 years ago. And with rope I could more easily explore, so I quickly found a thin column of smoke that would surely lead me to those teens. And quick side note, these messages were left from 2 rangers that are not here this season. So, I kept following the smoke, and after making Delilah mad for not answering her question, and sighting some beautiful scenery. Like, oh my god, this game looks so peaceful, right? I love it. I finally arrived at the place the girls were camping. What I wasn't expecting was to find their camping tent completely wrecked and clothes torn apart. Might that be the work of a bear? I don't think so. They left a note calling us psycho for what we did in the lake, and for destroying their campsite and stealing their panties. Something we absolutely did not do. So, something is up, that's for sure. At least they left. So, all we can hope for is for the vandalism to stop, even though I have a feeling it won't. Day 3 came by, and I used some planks I found around to fix the window, while Delilah was curious about our appearance. Yep, Tom Cruise good-looking twin and thick beard sounds about right. The reason she was asking though was to draw us, just like Julia always did in the past. And I was wondering, might she actually be Julia, since she lost her memories and stuff? I don't think so, cause I'd have remembered her voice, but that was strange. With window fixed, I asked Delilah what was next, to what she basically said to do whatever and call if you see any sign of smoke. So the days passed by, and on day 9, I was relaxed, eating a sandwich to a nice warm sunset, when Dee told us that the 2 girls from before were reported missing. I obviously were more than happy to help the investigation in any way I could, but this whole incident was indeed really strange, and it wasn't going to get any better. Day 15 came by, and I was woke up by Dee calling me on the radio, but when I picked it up, it was Julia who answered.
Hey, you big dumb idiot.
A ton of questions popped up on my mind. Is Delilah in fact Julia, and she just forgets her original personality sometimes? I don't really know. All I know is that Jules didn't seem all that well, and she knew the existence of Dee. Some days later I was on a mission to collect a supply drop, and the game was still as pretty as ever. I mean, just look at this. It's wallpaper worthy material right here. What matters is that Lila said I called her in the middle of the night, while mumbling the name Jules. So, was all that a dream? I'm not so sure. Either way, I continued hiking and retrieved supplies. And on day 64, I opened the door and glanced at a big fire in the distance. Dee had already called firemen, so since there was nothing else to do, I chose its name, and we just looked at it together, in the middle of the night, in a kind of romantic way. It was now day 76, and we decided to go fishing, only for Dee to tell us there's a possible bear nearby. That's good to hear. Near the lake we found a clipboard, and this was when things started going south. On it there were records of previous conversations I had with Dee, along with a bunch of other information. And to make things worse, we just heard a noise behind us. So we went to investigate, and found a cute little turtle. Okay, that's definitely not it, but I adopted it nonetheless. Apart from that, we also found a walkie-talkie on the floor, and when I picked it up, this happened.
Okay.
It's cold.
Hey, you. You're finally awake. You were trying to cross the border, right?
Someone hit us from behind, and when we woke up, both the clipboard and the radio were gone. All I know is that I could read Wapiti Station on it, and that place was nearby, so I went to investigate. But Lila wasn't quite convinced about what just happened to us, and that also made me question myself. Is there a possibility that we are the crazy ones, and we're just imagining stuff? I don't know. This whole situation is really weird, but there's someone out there who is listening to our conversations, and we need to take care of that. When I arrived, there was a huge fence protecting the entire location, and despite my best efforts, I couldn't get in. So, I had to ask the firefighters for help. Oh, and it seems the biologists sometimes do stuff like this to study flora or whatever. And, Julia was a biologist. Interesting. I started making way to the place the firemen were staying in. Learned Lila's door was open the other night. Passed through the site of the fire. Saw some wrecked snowmobiles in a pound. That's kinda weird. And found the firefighters were gone. At least they left an axe for us. So that might come in handy. Also, I probably shouldn't have picked this up.
Wow, 99% sure that's for burying poop.
There was also a letter that mentioned other research being conducted in Wapiti Station, which makes things even more uncanny. I then started making my way back, when Lila asked if someone was following me. And someone who wasn't either of us made a noise over the radio. Okay, that wasn't supposed to happen. Dee immediately told me to get in my tower, shut the door, and not use the radio. She would call me. On the next day, I completely ignored what she told me and tried calling her all day, without success. And when she finally picked up, she was different. Strange. She was abnormally happy and seemed like a completely different person. Oh look, the turtle that we adopted. How cool is that? I examined the Flora poster like she asked, and she told me to go to the same area as the second street name. So that's what I did. I hiked there, opened the supply box, and I found a new walkie-talkie inside. Now everything made sense. Since the other radio was tapped, she got us a new one. And it was now time to break into Wapiti Station and solve this whole mess. I once again questioned if all of this was just in our head. And do you remember that report that Lila filed for the police? Well, she kinda said neither of us had any idea about it. And now, someone out there has an entire transcript of our conversation proving otherwise. Great. On the way, I heard this creepy loud noise that could be either a wild animal or someone trying to make us talk over the radio to know where we are. When I arrived, I used a newly acquired axe to open the gate, got stung by a bee, and found a freaking base. Inside there was a soil grid, super high-tech beeping equipment, and a tent full of stuff. To make things worse, there was a map tracking our movements, with lines marking the paths I normally take, and a clipboard with information about us, Dee, and two other people that might just be the two rangers that were sending notes to each other in the past. Upon further investigation, I found the instrument used to track our location, the so-called wave receiver. So I used it, and found this black box beneath a pile of files, and a folder with reports about us. Subjects Henry and Lila. Now,
shit became real.
we were actively being monitored and assessed. Everything about our entire lives and personalities was written right there. And they even knew we were becoming aware of the test. They proposed that we just burn the place down, but I thought it would be against our best interests, and decided to just go back and think about what to do afterwards. When I was returning though, the bridge collapsed. I barely escaped with my life, and when I looked back, there was a column of smoke. The entire camp was on fire, and I didn't do anything, I think. I'm not sure if I can trust myself anymore. But we need to get out of this crazy place as soon as possible. Day 77. I taped all the notes we had to the window and noticed the receiver beeping. It led me to a backpack nearby that was rigged with some sort of alarm. I did destroy it as fast as I could, but the damage could already been done. In backpack there were keys for the cave we found at start of the game. But there's more important matters right now, since Dee saw someone in my lookout tower, and it sure as hell wasn't me. So I rushed there as fast as I could, to find it empty, with a record tape on the door. I listened to it, and it was a record of Delilah, saying we should burn the whole research site to the ground. I have no idea how they managed to listen to our conversation yet again, but the way it was recorded, it sounded like it was us who started the fire. And that obviously could be used to frame us. Day 78. I started the day by cinematically looking out of the window, and with someone claiming to be me, calling another lookout, and saying Lila knew who started the Wapiti station fire. So, it was probably time to explore the cave for some answers, if we don't want to leave this place in handcuffs. Inside the cave I used the keys to open the gate and explore ahead, but someone closed it when I wasn't looking. And the radio wasn't picking up signal either. Great news. We needed to find another way out, and after exploring it, we did manage to do that. So I reported being trapped inside and not finding anything, apart from a place we could explore further if we had some anchors. And nearby, I found a secret hideout. It seemed to be from Brian Goodwin, the 12-year-old that came here with his father. And it was really neat, honestly. He even made an elaborate plan to rescue his backpack, the one we found on second day. But, perhaps more importantly for us, there were some anchors we could use to explore deeper into the cave. We just had to sink it into the rock like this, and use it. But after thinking for a bit, I realized that it was weird that they just trapped me inside, instead of killing me or something. Oh, and by the way, remember the two girls from before? Yeah, they appeared. Alive, which is good. They just robbed a tractor for some reason and ended up in jail. I then was walking when the wave receiver started beeping yet again, leading me to a dead elk, with a tracking collar on its neck. That's interesting. Back at the cave I used pitons to explore further, and, bury yourself, found a dead body. Brian Goodwin. It seemed like his climbing gear broke, making him fall to his death. Which is really sad and completely unexpected. I gave the bad news to Dee, and she was really shocked. After all, she was one that allowed the 12-year-old to be out there, cause even with his father, he was against the rules. At least, we'll probably be leaving tomorrow. Day 79. I was packing up my stuff, while the fire was spreading quickly. It seemed like the Flap Shack and Wapiti station fires merged, and formed a huge disaster that was burning everything. And, as you can see, things weren't looking good outside. We still had no idea who was listening to us, following us around and blackmailing us though. So, when the receiver started beeping, there was only one thing we could do. By 30, I'll miss you. We followed it around until it led us to this. And, it sure as hell looks like a trap if I've ever seen one. When we listened to the tape, it was Brian's father talking, Ned. He was one that we met in the middle of the forest in our first days, and he has been holed up in the hideout we're about to see for 3 whole years, listening to the Lila talk for entertainment. It seems like he's still traumatized for losing Brian, and claimed to not have killed him. The kid just didn't use the equipment properly and fell. And instead of accepting reality and reporting the accident, Ned just escaped, disappeared from society, and hid inside these forests. Kinda like us and Lila. So all of this was Ned all along. Inside his little shelter there was a ton of stuff. After all, he's been living here for 3 years, right? And yeah, he was also the one that wrote the reports we found outside. There was even a photo of Brian, and the logs of our conversation. And, honestly, all of this was just really sad. With time running out, we made our way to Lila's lookout to catch a helicopter, and get out of there before the wildfire swallowed everything. But when we arrived, Dee was already gone. I noticed she had the pork pound plate that she commented was always being stolen, which I thought was a cool little detail. And there was also the drawing she made of us. When I talked to her, she told me she couldn't stay here 1 more minute, and had to go. But there would be a helicopter coming for us too. We'll be interrogated for all stuff that happened, but that's for later. We made a vague promise of meeting in the future, and she told me to go see Julia and stop running away from my problems. So I hopped on helicopter, and that was it. The end of this story. What a game, my friends. What a game. I hope you enjoyed this one as much as I did, cause this sure was a crazy ride. And make sure to watch this other one if you are interested. I'll see you there, so goodbye.